Hi guys, just wanted to do a quick video on football trading and factors to consider before placing trades. As you know, at betfairtradingcommunity.com we are always championing further research, and it's absolutely key. We believe that further research will make a massive difference to your trading. So, I'll get on with it. I've basically got 10 things that I think people miss out. They don't always look at. So these 10 things should hopefully make a big difference to your trading. Some of them you'll know, some of them you just need reminding of. It's always good to be reminded. Even myself, I like to remind myself of these things from time to time, because no matter how far along you are in your trading journey, it's always good to remind yourself of the basics and keep learning more than anything else. So the first thing is the new season factor. So I think most people will be aware of this, but obviously when a season's just starting and a league's just starting, you have to be very careful if you're going to place trades on that league, because form's hard to gauge. The form will come from 2 or 3 months ago. So is it as relevant? There's a lot would have happened in the summer that might have changed things. Clubs get promoted, relegated. There's a lot of factors to consider at the start of a new season. I generally like to wait 4 or 5 games into the season. I prefer it if, say, a home team that I want to back or trade on is playing, that they've had at least 4 home games, so that I've got some form to gauge and that I could look at. So obviously the away team hopefully will have 4 games, maybe 5 each, so sometimes you might be waiting until 10 games into the season, which will seem a lot to some people, but you want to make sure that what you're betting on, is going to give you the best chance of return, and the more information you can have, the better. The second thing is, something we've found out this weekend in particular, and actually when I've looked back at some of the records, is quite obvious, and it has happened as quite a pattern, is international break, the international break effect. So we get annoyed when the international break's on. We can't personally stand it here at Betfair Trading Community. We don't really like trading international games. We're much more into league football. Because we like more information. There's not enough information about international games because they're not played regularly. So squads are almost completely different by the time you get into the last 10 game history. So the international break has that effect. But one thing that we've noticed is that the weekend back after an international break throws up a lot of surprise results, teams not really gelling the way you would expect, and not really performing to how you would expect compared with the stats. So, in general, they do, but after this international break, they don't. So that weekend could just be one to avoid totally. Might be able to use it to your advantage, go for a few upsets, a few shocks. Some players will come back drowsy and tired. Think of the travelling they're doing. But even the ones who don't play, if they haven't played for 2 weeks, or if they've lost some of their players to even the youth teams, things like that, the youth internationals, it makes a big difference. Like with anything in life, if you go away for work and come back, you're going to be a bit lethargic. If you miss 2 weeks of work, it might take you a while to get back into it. It's just common sense when you think about it. Next thing, very similar to the international break, is European football. So, for example, Champions League this week. If Tottenham playing away at Real Madrid, massive game, that's going to take some energy. They might be lethargic next weekend. Now, that's not to say they definitely will be, but how often do you hear pundits say things like, well, they did have a trip in the European football and then the next weekend they lost their match, even though they were heavy favourites in the league? I remember Arsenal seemed to do this quite a lot. Chelsea struggle, even United. These teams with big squads, even they struggle sometimes coming back off a European break. So that's one to look out for as well, and perhaps one to avoid if you're looking to get on anything involved with the bigger team. If you're looking to back them or go for goals in particular, maybe you could use it to your advantage again if you wanted to go for the weaker teams on that weekend when they're playing someone who's, say, gone to Russia, Ukraine. But even the shorter trips, it really does affect you. It breaks things up a bit, and it's a totally different format, so you have to adjust your mindset almost to come back. Okay, fourth thing that I'm going to look at is weather. Now, I bet not many people look at the weather when they're trading. Now, you should. There are ways to do this really easily. There's 2 obvious. One is just check the weather forecast online. Google about 100 different weather sites you can look at for every city. You can find out where the game's being played, check the local weather there. Because rain, icy conditions, it can make a difference. You know, again, especially if you're going for goals, because that tends to stop goals happening a lot of the time. You know, a waterlogged pitch, it's a lot harder to score goals. So you've got to be really conscious of that as well. Bet365 actually does a little preview sometimes of the weather if they're covering that game, which they do in most games. So just beforehand, they will usually say what the weather's like there. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but if it's the only thing you can look at, then it's probably worth considering at least. The next thing, the fifth thing, injuries. Okay, pretty obvious this one, but it doesn't take long to check injuries in teams. It doesn't even take long to check lineups, to check how similar it is to the last lineup, see whether your top scorer is playing if you're looking for goals, see if the captain's playing, maybe things like that. Obviously, if you know the teams, you'll know which players to look out for anyway. So it definitely can be a great benefit to look for the injuries and work around that. I mean, if Messi's not playing for Barcelona, they look a totally different team, so some players will have a massive effect if they're injured. My sixth thing, pretty much the same, to be honest, suspensions. So I think Soccerway shows suspensions. That's a free site, and they'll show you who's out for that game usually, who's suspended. So have a look at that, and if one of the big players is out, you might want to rethink your trade. The seventh thing is new signings. So say you get through August and the start of September, there might be a few more players playing that weren't playing for that team that you want to trade on. That will make a big difference. That's a fact of football. Different players make teams different. It might be good, it might be bad. It's hard to tell. But if it is going to have a major impact, it's definitely something you want to consider, and it's something to look at. My eighth thing, pretty much the same again, new manager. I actually think this has a bigger impact in a lot of ways, because managers will tend to bring with them not just whether they're good or bad player, but because they're manager, they control the whole team, tactics, things like that. I mean, a good example of this actually, even though he's not a new manager, is say Mourinho at United. Playing Liverpool, such a conservative style of football. I mean, Alex Ferguson must be almost being sick watching United play like that. That's certainly not the United I remember playing growing up. And it's but it just shows that different managers play in such different ways. Man United used to play really expansive, exciting football, and now it's very much the Mourinho way. We're not going to concede, and if we score, then brilliant. But in the bigger games, he's more than happy to take a 0-0. So again, you need to be aware of what the tactics are, of what the situation is. Even things like, say, two top teams are playing together can make a big difference, because they won't want to give away goals. They can be tighter games. Just because they're two top scoring teams doesn't mean they'll get goals. We saw that with Roma and Napoli at the weekend. At the top of the league, don't want to give much away. Napoli get an away goal. They're going to happily take that 1-0 win away at Roma. That's a great result for them, even though both those teams score a huge amount of goals. So watch out for things like that. Local derbies as well can be similar in that way. Tactics change, and relegation battles. So another couple of things to look for. My ninth one is the winter break. Okay, so that's coming up fairly soon. Now, teams in Germany, Switzerland, some other countries will have a little winter break. Most of the European teams actually. So it's really key that when they come back, I mean, you probably want to miss that first weekend again, a bit like with international football break and European football. These breaks can sometimes be nearly a couple of months. So it's almost like the end of the season, you're starting again. So I'd at least look at missing the first weekend, because, again, these teams are going to be out of rhythm. They're going to be not playing the way they were. Might have had new signings again, because it's that time of year. So important things to think about as well. And finally, to wrap it all up, end of season. So the end of season effect, probably the same as a new season effect. Motivation is a big thing at the end of the season. Do teams need to win? If not, it can be dangerous. Or if they're happy to get a draw. So as you see in Serie A, towards the end of the season, or Italy in general, you'll get games where the draw is heavily odds on, because it suits one of the teams or both of the teams. So yeah, be aware of that. Again, you can use a similar rule to the new season rule, where 4 to 5 games out, you start to think, do you know what, I'm going to leave it now, because I'm not exactly sure what these teams are going to do. It's all become a little bit more important, and maybe things will stop happening or dry up, or maybe even use it to your advantage. Who knows? But just be aware of these things. I think they're 10 great things to think about. And I think if you're quick, you get good sources and you're quick, and take you more than 5-10 minutes to look all those 10 points up. So thanks for watching, and I hope to have another video up for you soon. Cheers. Bye.